مطاع يؤمن بالله العزيز الحميد الذي له ملك السماوات والأرض والله على كل شيء شهيد. إن الذين فتنوا المؤمنين والمؤمنات ثم لم يتوبوا فلهم عذاب جهنم ولهم عذاب الحريق. إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات لهم جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار ذلك الفوز الكبير. إن بطش ربك لشديد إنه هو يبدع ويعيد وهو الغفور الودود ذو العرش المجيد فعل لما يريد. هل أتاك حديث الجنود فرعون وثمود بل الذين كفروا في تكذيب والله من ورائهم محيط بل هو قرآن مجيد في لوح محفوظ. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعمه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون الذي لا يدركه بحد الهمم ولا يناله غوث الفتن الذي ليس لصفته حد محدود ولا نعت موجود ولا وقت محدود ولا أجل ممدود فترى الخلائق بقدرته ونشر الرياح برحمته ووتد بالصخور ميدان أرض ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وحبيبنا وحبيب رب العالمين بالقاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين واللعن على أعدائهم أجمعين من أول يوم ظلمهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد فقال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المبين وقوله الحق. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الرسول بلغ ما أنزل إليك من ربك وإن لم تفعل فما بلغت رسالته والله يحسمك من الناس إن الله لا يهدي القوم الكافرين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Before we begin, please recite Surah Fatiha for your marhumin, for the marhumin of all those mu'minin mu'minat that do not have anyone to recite Surah Fatiha on their behalf. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له اللهم اغفرهم وارحمهم واسكنهم بجوار محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As we had said, that these lectures were going to focus on those events that acted as the cornerstones for the events of Karbala. And yesterday we spoke about one of the events, which was that treaty that 5 of the people from Quraysh, they signed to make sure that the Khilafah does not go to Amir al-Mu'mineen. And that treaty acts as a stepping stone for what we are talking about today. That treaty acts as a stepping stone for the reason they did not pledge allegiance, or for the reason they pledged allegiance and then broke off that pledge of allegiance from Amir al-Mu'mineen. When it comes to the event of Ghadir, this event everyone knows about. When it comes to the event of Ghadir, everyone knows that one famous phrase from that whole sermon of the Holy Prophet, where the Holy Prophet says, Man kunta mawla fahaza aliyan mawla. Even the kids, they all know it. But what a lot of people don't understand is, what does that mawla mean? What people don't understand is, was that the only thing that the Holy Prophet talked about in that sermon? What people don't understand is that when it comes to the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'min, why did the Holy Prophet stress so much in that sermon that Amir al-Mu'mineen was to be the wali? If you read that sermon, the word khilafah, the word khalifa, Amir al-Mu'mineen being khalifa, do you know how many times it appears in that sermon? 3 or 4 times, that's it. The Sunnis, they say that khilafat is just political rule. Khilafat, it just means political rule. Even if we were to take that meaning of khilafat, where it is just political rule, that word only appears 3 or 4 times in the sermon of the Holy Prophet. When you look at other phrases, such as wali, such as mawla, these appear over 20 times in that same sermon. What is the significance, or what is the difference between mawla and khalifa? If we were to just look at it from a perspective of just words, from grammatical perspective. If you say that khilafat only means political rule, the first khalifa that was placed on this earth was who? Hazrat Adam alayhi salam. If Hazrat Adam was the first khalifa, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that he is going to be a khalifa, there was no political system here on earth for him to be a ruler over. So then how can we interpret the word khalifa to mean just political rule? Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. How do you interpret the word khalifa just to mean a political ruler? When you read the Quran, you see there's a problem that the Sunnis have to deal with. Whenever the word khalifa, khalaifa, khulafa, whenever these phrases appear in the Quran, it always says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses them. Always says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses them. When it came to Hazrat Adam alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I'm the one who's going to place a khalifa. When it came to Hazrat Dawood alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm going to. Hazrat Salih, I'm going to. So whenever the word khalifa was used in the Quran, you can all go and look. Wherever the word khalifa is used, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or it's plural, is used, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says what? I'm the one. We're the ones. It was never left up to the creatures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to decide who should be the khalifa. It was never left up to. If that was the case, then it should have been left up to the angels to decide who should be the khalifa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the beginning, it should have been left up to it. But no, it wasn't left up to it. It was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who decided. And this makes sense, even logically. If I own a business, I'll explain it. If I own a business and I have workers, do I have a right to choose who represents me in my business in business meetings? Or do the workers have that right to choose who represents me in business meetings? I have that right. If I'm the owner of a business, I have that right to decide who represents me in business meetings, not the workers, correct? If we all agree that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator of this universe, then we have to come to the conclusion that He's the one who gets to decide who represents Him in this universe. Not us creatures. Not us. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who's going to decide. So when it comes to Khalifa, this is not just a matter of political rule. When it comes to the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen, this is not just a matter of political rule. No, this verse of the Quran, Ayatul Balligh, it's known as Ayatul Balligh. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? Ya ayyuhar Rasul, Balligh ma unzila ilayka min Rabbik. This verse is known as Ayatul Balligh. When was this revealed? This was the verse that was revealed in Ghadir Qum. What was happening right before Ghadir? What was happening? Hajj. Where were they? Makkah. So all of the people, according to narrations, by the 4th day of Zil-Hijjah, 100,000 people were gathered in Makkah. So now in Hajj, that was during the 4th day. By the 5th day, more and more people are coming. So by the time that they've left, now it's the 18th of Zil-Hijjah. 18th of Zil-Hijjah now. When the Ghadir Qum happened, you have 100,000 Hajis in front of the Holy Prophet. 100,000 Muslims in front of the Holy Prophet. 100,000 Muslims. That's when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals this verse and He says what? Ya ayyuhar Rasul, balligh ma unzila ilayka min Rabbik. O my messenger, proclaim what was revealed to you. Balligh. If you read the Quran and you ponder over the verses, nowhere in the Quran has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoken to the Holy Prophet in this tone. Nowhere. Whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke to the Holy Prophet, what were the words that He used? He always used words such as Yasin. He used words such as Taha. He used words such as Ya ayyuhal Muzammil. Ya ayyuhal Mudaththir. These were the words, these were the phrases that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used whenever He was speaking to His final messenger. But this is the one instance where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He changes His tone. And He says what? Ya ayyuhar Rasul. Ya ayyuhar Rasul balligh. What is the significance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala using the word Rasul here? The significance is that now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to make sure everyone knows that this messenger is going to give them an important message. What is the job of a messenger? To give messages between two people. That's the job of a messenger. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants everyone to know that the message that is being given by calling the Holy Prophet by his job title, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants everyone to know that this message that is being given is going to be important. 1. 2. Balligh. This word balligh, what does it mean? It means to proclaim. In English, it means to proclaim. When it comes to this word, a proclamation, by definition, a proclamation is done openly for everyone to hear. It's done out in the open. This word balligh, when it came to telling the people to pray, the word balligh does not appear. This is a command now. This is a command, imperative command. When it came to Hajj, the word balligh does not appear. When it came to fasting, the word balligh does not appear. When it came to Amr bil Maruf, Nahy anil Munkar, the word balligh does not appear. The word balligh appears in this verse of the Quran that tells you what? Whatever needs to be said needs to be proclaimed for everyone to hear. What's the significance of this? One word in the Quran that everyone knows. Qul. Right? Surah Al-Ikhlas. Qul huwallahu ahad. Qul ya ayyuhal kafirun. Right? What does qul mean? Qul, all it means in Arabic is say. That's it. It means say. What's the difference between say, qul, and balligh? Qul huwallahu ahad. Say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one. When it comes to saying something, you can say it in a whisper, or you can say it in a loud voice. Correct? When it comes to proclamation, when it comes to baligh, there is no whispering it. By definition, a proclamation is said openly for everyone to hear. So how do you and I today, 1400 years after baligh was used in Ghadir, how do you and I proclaim the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen? It's in our azan when we say, Ashhadu anna Aliyun Waliullah. That azan is a proclamation. And in that, calling people to what? To the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In there, we're telling people about the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. This wilayat is not supposed to be just whispered to me and you. No, the fact that the word baligh has been used, it tells us that it needs to be proclaimed for everyone to hear. For everyone to hear. Whether, as we'll get to the end of this verse, whether they like it or not. Whether they like to hear it or not. But it needs to be proclaimed. It goes on to say what? Ya ayyuha Rasul, baligh ma unzila ilayka min rabbik. What was revealed to you from your Lord. The past tense has been used. Which tells us what? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had told the Holy Prophet to tell the people about the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen before. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded the Holy Prophet to tell the people about the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And we'll get to what that wilayat is, inshallah, and why it's important. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded the Holy Prophet to tell the people about that wilayah. Why was it that the Holy Prophet did not tell them before? Because the narrations, they say that Jibreel, he came to the Holy Prophet 3 to 4 times. He came to the Holy Prophet 3 to 4 times. Every time Jibreel came, the Holy Prophet told Jibreel, Jibreel, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect me from the people. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for protection. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for protection. Why did he need, or why did he require the protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? That's the question. Why did he require that protection? What was so important, or what was he afraid his own companions would do that he's asking Jibreel to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for protection? What was he afraid of? If you read the narrations, you'll read about an event that happened right after Hajj, where a group of people tried to assassinate the Holy Prophet. They tried to assassinate the Holy Prophet. These companions of the Holy Prophet, yes, they were companions, but you have to remember that just merely being a companion does not give someone fazilat. Just merely being a companion. Why? Because a companion can be a Muslim, a companion can be a kafir. It doesn't matter. A companion is just someone who is with you. That's it. A companion is just someone who is with you. You look at the story of Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam. What does he say when he goes to jail? When the two people, they come and ask the interpretation of the dream, what does he say? Ya sahib sijni. Oh, my companions in jail. Oh, my companions in jail. You pick up any tafsir, whether it be Shia or Sunni tafsir, all of them, they say that these people that Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam considered to be companions, they were kafir. They were kafir. They didn't believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So just merely being a companion does not give you fazilat, does not make you great. No, because a companion, in Arabic, a companion can be human or a companion can be an animal. A companion can even be an animal. So if a companion can even be an animal, how does just merely being a companion make you greater than someone? It doesn't. It doesn't. It was these same companions who had just done Hajj who tried to assassinate the Holy Prophet. Inshallah, we'll get to it in the coming days. These same companions. That is what the Holy Prophet was afraid of. Every time the Holy Prophet, throughout the life, whenever the Holy Prophet talked about the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen, whenever he told them that after me, the successor is going to be Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, what did the companions do? They always belittle the Holy Prophet. He's just raising his cousin. He's just raising. All he does is listen to him. All he does is listen to him. To the point where the Holy Prophet, in his sermon of Ghadir, he himself, he says that it came to a point where they started calling me uzun. They started calling me ear. Why? Because all I did was put my ear to whatever Amir al-Mu'mineen said. Do you see these companions? And the majority of Muslims respect these companions that disrespect the Holy Prophet. This is where you need to start thinking. Who do I hold more dear? These companions or the Holy Prophet? That's what the Muslims need to start thinking about. Look at what these companions have done in history. And you'll come to the conclusion that yes, no, not all of them were equal. There's some who accepted Islam because there's wealth to be had. There's some who accepted Islam because there was power to be gained. There's some who accepted Islam because they were poor. And you see that in history. Whatever religion, in every religion this has happened. Whenever the religions have come, the religion has always done what to the poor? It's always cared for the poor. When the society has left the poor, it's the religion that has come and it's always tried to help the poor. When the poor see this, what do? They gravitate towards the religion. Not because the religion is giving them some truth, but because the religion is giving them a worldly benefit. A worldly benefit. So it was also the case in the time of the Holy Prophet. This is the reason the Holy Prophet kept telling Jibril, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for protection. This is when Jibril, he comes with this command and he tells the Holy Prophet that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will surely protect you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect you. But look at the end of this verse. Look at the end of this verse tells you what the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen is. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say in the end of this verse? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He does not guide who? The kafirin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not guide the kafirin. Where is this verse revealed? Ghadirakum. For what event? For the event of the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'min, the khilafat of Amir al-Mu'min. Correct? All the people that are gathered in front of the Holy Prophet are who? Are they kafir? No. All of these people have just come back from Hajj. All of these people that are gathered in front of the Holy Prophet are Muslim. Yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, speaking to these Muslims, that He surely does not guide the kafirin. What does this tell you about the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen? That if you reject the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen, then in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're a kafir. If you reject the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen. I use my words carefully. And every scholar that comes here uses their words carefully. If you reject the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Why do I say reject and why am I emphasizing reject? Because all of those companions at that time, it was put forth to them. Meaning what? If this water bottle was never offered to me, can I reject it? No, it makes no sense for me to reject something that was never offered to me. But if this water bottle was offered to me, then I can say that I rejected it. Then I can reject it. Correct? The wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen was put forth to those companions 1400 years ago. There were companions that rejected it. There were companions that accepted it. The companions that rejected it are whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that He does not guide the kafirin. The ones that rejected it. And for this, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, when he was talking to one of his companions, he says to him, look, the similarity between accepting and rejecting the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen on the day of Ghadir is the same as shaitan and the angels either bowing down towards Adam or not bowing down towards Adam. They asked him, Ya Ibn Rasulullah, what do you mean? He says, look, everyone that accepted the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen on the day of Ghadir, they're like the angels that bowed down to Hazrat Adam alayhi salam, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. Everyone that rejected the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen, they're all like shaitan who rejected the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then what does the Quran say about shaitan? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked shaitan, why was it that you did not do sajda in front of whom I created with my own two hands? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked him what? Are you of the Arleen, or did you commit kufr? Did you commit kufr? You have one of the two. Obviously he was not of the Illiyin. So that means what? Shaitan, he committed kufr. This is what Imam Sadiq alayhi salam is saying. This is why the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen is important. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this verse that He does not guide the kafirin. He's equating those people that reject the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen to kafirs. And I said before that kufr, there's different types of kufr. It's not just one type, that's it. It's not just one. There's different types of shirk, there's different types of kufr. Kufr, literally it means to hide. That's what kufr literally means, to hide something. Even if we were to take that meaning of kufr, what does that mean? These people, they are hiding the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen. They've put a cover over the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And you see that from that day to the day of Karbala, that's what they did. When we come to the first Khalifa and what he tried to do, you'll see. He tried to put a cover. The second Khalifa, cover. The third Khalifa, cover. Muawiyah, cover. You'll see that's what they did. Put a cover over the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen. But brothers and sisters, what is this wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen? Why did the Holy Prophet, after that sermon, why did he tell the people that, oh people, after I'm done with my sermon, you will all pledge allegiance to me and you'll pledge allegiance to Ali? What's significant about that pledge? Why did the Holy Prophet want to do this? You read the Quran, what does the Quran say? Anyone that pledges to the Holy Prophet, Ya Rasulullah, anyone that pledges allegiance to you, surely only and only pledges allegiance to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the pledge of allegiance to the Holy Prophet is a pledge of allegiance to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anyone that pledges allegiance to Amir al-Mu'mineen has pledged allegiance to the Holy Prophet, who's pledged allegiance to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you break the pledge of allegiance to the Holy Prophet, you've broken the pledge of allegiance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You look at the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Ayat al-Wilaya. Innama waliyukumullah wa rasul wallazina amanu allazina yuqimuna salata wa yutuna zakata wa hum raki'un. When you analyze, Shahid Mutahari, he's analyzed this verse very deeply. In English, it's called Master and Mastership. Please read that book to understand what this wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen is. In Urdu, it's called Falsafat al-Wilaya. In Arabic, Falsafat al-Wilaya. In Persian, Falsafat al-Wilaya. In English, Master and Mastership. To understand what this wilaya truly is. When he analyzes this verse, he says, look, first and foremost, innama. The phrase innama, it comes to put a boundary. It comes for hasr. Meaning that whatever is outside innama cannot come in. Whatever is inside innama does not go out. For example, Ayatul Tathir, does it not start off innama? Correct? Whatever is inside that innama does not go out. Whatever is outside cannot come in. The same thing here. He says that this phrase or this verse starts off with innama. Whatever is outside does not go in. Whatever is inside does not come out. Now he goes on to say, look, the verse, when you analyze it, innama waliyukumullah. Your wali is only and only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Only and only. Your wali is only and only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa rasul. and the Prophet. And the Prophet. And then it goes on to talk about the sifat. It gives the sifat of an individual who did a certain act in the state of ruku. All the Mufassirin, they agree that this verse, Ayatul Wilaya, was revealed regarding Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. What was the incident? Everyone knows that Amir al-Mu'mineen, he was praying in the state of ruku. A beggar, he comes to him. The beggar, he goes into the masjid asking for alms. He comes to Amir al-Mu'mineen. Amir al-Mu'mineen is in a state of ruku. What does he do? He puts out his finger and tells the man to take his ring. The man, he takes his ring. When the man takes Amir al-Mu'mineen's ring, that's when this verse was revealed to the Holy Prophet. The Holy Prophet asked, was there someone that gave something in the state of ruku? They say, yes, there was a beggar who took something from Amir al-Mu'mineen. Amir al-Mu'mineen gave something in the state of ruku. Innama waliyukumullah wa rasul. Only and only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is your wali and his Rasul. Shahid Mutahari, he says, look, in the Arabic language, if the wilayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if the authority of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was different than the authority of the Prophet, and that authority was different than the authority of that individual that gave zakat in the state of ruku, in the Arabic language, the word wali should have been repeated. The word wali should have been repeated. The fact that the word wali has been used only once, but then different people have been attached to that one word, tells you that the wilayat that is there in the beginning, that is the same wilayat that these other individuals also possess. The authority that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala possesses, that's the same authority that the Holy Prophet possesses, and that's the same authority that Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam possesses. The same authority. There's no difference in that authority. The only difference is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave these two that authority. That's it. The authority of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's His own. No one gave it to Him. No one gave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the authority that they possess in terms of action is the same as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's. The only difference is that it was given to them. It was given to them. When you reject the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen, according to this verse, what are you actually doing? You're rejecting the wilayat of the Holy Prophet. When you reject the wilayat of the Holy Prophet, what are you doing? You're rejecting the wilayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Once you reject the authority, the wilayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what have you become? Thank you so much. Once you reject the wilayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you cease to be within the bounds of Islam. You're out. That's it. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said in that verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not guide the kafirin, because they've rejected the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen. What is this wilaya? Wilaya, Shaykh Mutahari says, look, wilaya, waliya, wilaya. It means two things to be situated next to each other. Two things to be so close to each other that you do not see them as two. They look like they're one. In Arabic, that's what it truly means. And in the Quran, wilaya has been used in a positive sense. Wilaya has been used in a negative sense. In a negative sense, for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that do not take the Jews and the Christians to be your awliya. Do not take the Christians and the Jews to be your awliya. If you take awliya here to mean friends, and one of the meanings is friends. If you take awliya to mean friends, that means that living in the West becomes very difficult. This is a Christian majority country. That means that you're not allowed to take Christians as your friends. You're not allowed to have Jews as your friends. Correct? Another interpretation, do not take the Christians and the Jews as your masters. Awliya also means masters. And that's the way we take it when it comes to Amir al-Mu'mineen. And it's this verse. It's because of this verse some of our older ulama, previous ulama, they use this verse, and this is the reason that say that if you live in the West, do not vote. Using this verse as a basis. Why? Because if awliya means master, if awliya means leader, It's saying what? Do not take the Christians and the Jews as your leaders. If you put in a vote, what's happening? You're taking one of them as your leaders. And it was this verse that the previous ulama used to say that you're not allowed to vote. But now the ulama, they don't take this meaning, but they say that it means friend, even if it means friend. What does it mean to the youngsters? I don't want them to feel like, oh my God, we can't have any friends. Or no, that's not what this verse is saying. What do friends do? Friends, they influence each other. Correct or no? They influence each other. Just the same way family influences an individual, friends influence the individual. If the individual is Muslim, what will happen? The influence will usually be Islamic influence. If the friend is non-Muslim, the influence will be non-Islamic. Correct? What this verse is basically saying is, no, you do not need to fight with the Christians. You do not need to constantly bicker, fight amongst with the Christians and the Jews. No. Make sure that you do not lose your Muslim identity even if you are near them. And this is the problem that a lot of Muslims face today. They make friends, no problem. But what happens? They end up losing their Muslim identity. What do I mean? Let's look at the sisters, for example, and I won't only pick on the sisters. They have non-Muslim friends. Those friends become so close. What is the Islamic identity of a Muslim woman? Whenever someone says this person is a Muslim, this woman is a Muslim, why would they say that? What do they see that they say this person is a Muslim? They see the hijab. On a woman, they'll see the hijab and they'll automatically say that this woman is Muslim. But sisters today, they've taken the Christians to be such friends that they've lost that Muslim identity, and because of them, they've stopped wearing hijab. Stop wearing hijab. Let's look at the brothers. In Islam, here in the West, when a brother has a beard, what do the non-Muslims usually say? Muslim, right? They usually attribute beard with Islam, usually. I'm not saying all the time, usually. They've taken friends to such an extent that this identity is completely gone. This is just a physical identity. I haven't even started on the spiritual identity, where you take these friends and they've completely taken you away from Islam. Where the brothers, sisters, they stop praying. Where the brothers, sisters, oh, you know what? Let's just go to a club. No, I haven't even started on the spiritual. No, I'm just looking at the physical. That's it. This is what that verse is telling you. That do not lose your Muslim identity even if you're amongst them. Even if you're amongst them. And sad to say that a lot of the times this is what happens. This is what happens. But this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala using the word awliya in this negative context. But it's also been used in positive contexts. This is one of the verses where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the wilayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Innama walikum Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is your wali. What does wali mean here? Like I said before, wali, it has many meanings. It has the meaning of friend. It has the meaning of friend. It has the meaning of master. Are you going to take the meaning of friend, or are you going to take the meaning of master? If you take the meaning of friend, then the particle innama, it means that only and only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is your friend. Only and only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is your friend. Only and only the Prophet is your friend. And only that person that gave zakat in a state of ruku. If you take the word wali to mean friend, that means that these are your only three friends. You can't have any others. So what does that tell you about the companions then? If you take it to mean friends. Why? Because that particle innama, what does it do? It confines it. Like I said in the beginning, it confines everything. If you take wali to mean master, and is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not everyone's master? If you take wali to mean master, then that means what? That means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is your master. That means that the Holy Prophet is your master. And that mastership that they have, it's the same. There is no difference in that mastership. There's no difference. The same way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a right over your body and your soul, that same way the Holy Prophet has a right over your body and your soul. That same way Amir al-Mu'mineen has a right over your body and your soul. That's the reason the Holy Prophet asked in that sermon of Ghadir, Ya ayyuhan nas, man awla bikum min anfusikum. O people, who has more authority, awla? Who has more authority over yourselves than you do? What did the people say? Allah wa Rasul. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet. That's when the Prophet says, after they all say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet have more authority over us than we ourselves do, that's when the Holy Prophet says, Man kuntu mawla fahaza aliyun mawla. Who's ever mawla I am, everyone that said that I have authority over your souls, then who's ever mawla I am, then this Ali is mawla in that same way. This Ali is mawla in that same way. When it came to the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'minin, when it came to Khilafat, it's not political. No. The Aimah alayhim salam, the Holy Prophet alayhim salam, all of these prophets, they came for what? To guide mankind, to perfect mankind, spiritually to perfect mankind's morals. It wasn't just for political rule. But there needs to be a system in this world where they can do what? They can obey the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and mete out Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's justice. For true justice to happen in this world, what does this world require? It requires a representative of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When the Holy Prophet already said that this is going to be my last Hajj, that told the world that after this, there will be no more Hajj for him. That means what? That this representation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, prophethood, is leaving. But does that mean that there shouldn't be a representative of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at all? No. Because if there's no representative of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after the Holy Prophet passes away until the Day of Judgment, what can we say? Ya Allah, yes, we had this book. But even 1400 years later, forget 1400 years later, 200 years after the Holy Prophet passed away, there were so many interpretations of these verses. There was no one to correct us. Could we not say that? Even today, 1400 years afterwards, we can say to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after we pass away, if there was no representative of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, there was no representative. There were so many interpretations of the Quran. How was I supposed to know this interpretation was right? So what does that tell you? It tells you that there always needs to be a representative of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on earth. Why? So these verses of the Quran can be interpreted. These verses of the Quran are not for you and I to interpret. These verses of the Quran are for the Ahlul Bayt to interpret. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. When it came to this Ghadir, what does the Holy Prophet do at the end? The Holy Prophet, he tells everyone and he calls everyone. Not just the men, even the women. They paid allegiance to Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. But they did it in a different way. They did it the same way that the Holy Prophet did in Hudaybiyah. The men, they all came and they put their hands on top of the Holy Prophets. They put their hands underneath, the Holy Prophet put his hands on top. That's how the men did it. How did the women do it? In Hudaybiyah, or when the Holy Prophet was taking oaths from the women in Mecca, oaths from women in Medina, how were they doing it? It was in water. Some of the narrations, they say that the Holy Prophet had his hand in water, the women had their hand in water on the other side. That's how that oath was being taken. The same way that oath was being taken by Amir al-Mu'mineen. The same way that oath was being taken by the Holy Prophet. It wasn't just the men. The Holy Prophet had told everyone that whatever you're about to hear today, this event, I want you to tell everyone when you go back to your cities. I want you to pass it on to those people that are not here. I want you to pass it on to the generations to come. I want you to pass it on to the generations to come. Why did he not say about Salat, I want you to pass it on to the generations to come? Why do we not have any narrations where he says about Siyam, I want you to pass it on to the generations to come? Why did he not say about Hajj, I want you to pass it on to the generations to come? Why is it that only and only for the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen that the Holy Prophet says, I want you to pass it on to the generations to come? It tells you what? It tells you that the Hajj, the Siyam, the Zakat, the Khums, the Amr bil Maruf, the Nahy, the Salat, they're all dependent on the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen. If an individual does not have that wilayah, if they've rejected that wilayah, everything becomes useless. Those amal, they become useless. Why? Because rejecting that wilayah, according to the verse, according to the interpretation of the verse, it makes you a kafir. And you see that because those 5 individuals, that was just 5, those were the 5 that signed that treaty that we spoke about yesterday. But what about the other 100, or what about the other 99,995 people? How is it that all of these people, when Amir al-Mu'mineen was asking for their right, how is it that all these people, they either forgot, or how is it possible that all these people, they said, no, we don't remember this? Or how is it that all these people, they just rejected it? How is it possible? When it comes to this, if you look at the life of Hazrat Musa alayhi salam, you see that there's a lot of similarities between the life of Hazrat Musa alayhi salam and the life of the Holy Prophet. You see that there's similarities between Yusha bin Nun and Amir al-Mu'mineen. If you look at their life, Hazrat Musa alayhi salam, after he passes away, there was a wife of Hazrat Musa alayhi salam that rose up with 2 of the Jews, 2 of the prominent Jews of that time, and she fought a battle against the rightful successor of Hazrat Musa, Hazrat Yusha bin Nun. And the time of the Holy Prophet, what happened? Or after the Holy Prophet passes away, there's a wife of the Holy Prophet who rises up with 2 prominent companions of the Holy Prophet, and what do? They fight or they battle against the rightful successor to the Holy Prophet. In that battle, the narrations, they state, what? 40,000 people died in the time of Hazrat Musa alayhi salam. You look at Jamal, you see that that's how many people died there too. When the Holy Prophet said about himself and Amir al-Mu'mineen, that Amir al-Mu'mineen is like Harun. That Amir al-Mu'mineen is like Harun. What did that mean? That meant that Amir al-Mu'mineen is to be the successor. Yes, Hazrat Harun, he passed away in the time of Hazrat Musa alayhi salam. He passed away in the time of Hazrat Musa alayhi salam. But as long as he was alive, he was supposed to be the successor to the Holy Prophet. The successor to the, alaykum salam wa rahmatullah, to the successor to the Holy Prophet. But people don't understand this. And because of that rejection in Ghadir, that was one of the foundations for Karbala. And brothers, sisters, when it comes to Karbala, you see that all of us, we're all sinners. One of the personalities in Karbala who considered themselves to be one of the greatest sinners, that was amongst the companions of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn alayhi salam, is that individual whose shahadat we're commemorating tonight. Hur ibn Yazid al-Rihai. Hur, if you all remember, he's the one who stopped Abu Abdullah al-Husayn alayhi salam from going to wherever he wanted to. When Abu Abdullah al-Husayn alayhi salam, he gets near Kufa, when he starts coming to the lands of Iraq, It's Hur. He's the one who stopped them. Mullah Hussein, he tells Hur, if they don't want me in Kufa, they're the ones that called me. If they don't want me in Kufa, I'll go other places. I have other places I can go. Just let me go. Hur, what does he say? He says, Yabna Rasulullah, I can't let you go. I've been ordered to keep you here. When he says this, Mullah Hussein, he says to him, Oh Hur, may your mother weep over you. May your mother weep over you. That's when Hur, he looks at Abu Abdullah al-Hussein and he says to him, Ya Hussein, I know who your mother is. Your mother is Fatima al-Zahra. Your mother is Bint Rasulullah. And because your mother is Bint Rasulullah, if your mother happened to be anyone other than her, I would have surely given you a reply. But because that is your mother, I'm going to stay quiet. That tells you what? Hur still understood who this man was. Hur still understood who this man was. Sallallahu alayka ya Rasulallah. Sallallahu alayka ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. Sallallahu alayki ya Siddiqatu Fatima. Sallallahu alayka ya Hasan al-Mujtaba. Sallallahu alayka ya Gharib al-Ghuraba. Ya Aba Abdullah al-Husayn. Ya Hussein. Brothers, sisters, it's Laylatul Ashur. It's the night before the day of Ashur. Hur, he's in the camp of Yazid and he's outside of his tent. And when he comes outside, he hears from the camp of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, he hears the phrases, Al-Atash, Al-Atash. Why is he hearing these phrases? Why? Because from the 7th till now, water has been cut off to the camp of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. When he constantly hears these sounds of Al-Atash from the children in that camp, he comes back and he says to Umar, Oh Umar Saad, are we going to truly battle Abu Abdullah al-Hussein tomorrow? Umar Saad, what does he say? He says, Hur, yes, we're truly going to battle these individuals tomorrow. He comes out of his tent again. He starts to shake. He starts to quiver. Some of the narrations, they say that it was his son. Other narrations say that it was his servant. But one of them asked him, Oh Hur, why are you shivering like this? Why are you shaking like this? Those individuals over there, they've been hungry. They've been thirsty for these days. Hur, he looks at them and he looks at his son or his servant and he says, I'm not scared, I'm not shivering, I'm not shaking because I'm scared of them. I'm shaking. Why? Because I see hell on this side and I see heaven on that side. I'm shaking. Why? Because I see Lady Zahra Salawatullah's son, he's on that side and I see what's happening to him. Then the son or the servant, they ask, Hur, what are you going to do? When the morning comes, brothers and sisters, Hur, he decided that he's going to go to the camp of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. When he goes to the camp of Imam Hussein, the son, he goes with him. Before he goes with him, he tells his son, Oh my son, can you tie my hands behind my back? That's when the son says to the father, Oh father, your name is Hur, you're free. Why do you want your hands to be tied? If you have your hands tied, then that means that you're a slave. Hur, he says, Oh my son, I'm truly a slave. Oh my son, what I've done is actually unjust. Please tie my hands behind my back. The narrations, they say that his hands were tied. They go towards the camp of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein and as they were nearing that camp, Mullah Hussein, he sends Abu al-Fazl Abbas to go greet those guests. When Abu al-Fazl Abbas comes, Hur, he sees that Abbas is there. He tells his son, Oh my son, go tell Abbas that we're not here to fight. We're here to apologize to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Abbas, he comes and he tells Hur, Oh Hur, I already know you come here to apologize. My master sent me because of that. Brothers and sisters, if you've ever gone to Karbala, you see that the Iraqis there, what do they do? Whenever they go to the mausoleum of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, what do? they crawl on their hands and feet and they go to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Why? Because they've learned this from Hur. What did Hur do when he came down from his horse? He crawled on his hands and knees and he went to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein to ask for forgiveness. When he asked for forgiveness, Imam Hussein he says, "Oh Hur, I've forgiven you, and my mother Zahra, she's forgiven you." That's when Hur, he says, "Ya Abu Abdullah, if you've truly forgiven me, then please let me ask forgiveness from your sister Zainab." He goes to the camp of Zainab and he says, "Ya bint Rasul, please forgive me. Oh children of Rasulullah, please forgive me." That's when Lady Zainab, she cries out, "Oh Hur, we have forgiven you, and on the day of judgment I'll tell my mother Fatima, oh my mother dear." Hur, he was one of the people that helped Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. Hur, when he gets the apology, when he apologizes to him, he comes back to Imam Hussein and he says to him, "Ya Mawla, I want to be the first. If you've truly forgiven me, I want to be the first, and I want my son to go out and fight for your cause." The narrations, they say that the son of Hur, he went out and he fought, and when he was martyred, he called out, "Ya Abati adrikni, oh father dear, please help me." Hur, he goes out to the side of his son, but as soon as he gets there, he sees that Abu Abdullah al-Hussein is already there. When he gets there, Hur asks, "Oh my master, what have you done? He's a servant of yours, he's a slave of yours, why are you carrying him?" That's when Abu Abdullah says to him, "Oh Hur, a father should not be carrying the dead body of his son. That the father should not be carrying the dead body of his son." When Abu Abdullah al-Hussein takes the body of the son back, that's when Hur, he starts to fight. Brothers, sisters, after Hur, he gets martyred. The narrations, they state that in the time of the Abbasid dynasty, Shah Abbas Safwi, he was making the mausoleums of all of the shuhada. And he comes to the mausoleum of Hur and he tells the people that we also need to make his mausoleum. That's when the people, they say, "Why are you going to make his mausoleum? He's the one who prevented Abu Abdullah al-Hussein to go from wherever he wanted. You shouldn't make his mausoleum." That's when he says to them, "No, if Abu Abdullah al-Hussein has truly forgiven him, then I can't do that. If he's truly forgiven Hur, then he will also be a shaheed and he will look just like everyone else. He will look like he's still alive." The narration, what did they say? They said that when he went and he opened up his grave to make a Muslim, he saw that Hur, he was still there in that grave, and it looked like he had just passed away. It looked like he was just martyred. But as soon as he entered that grave, the narration, it says that he smelt a fragrance that he had never smelt before. And as he gets closer to Hur, he sees that that fragrance is coming from a bandana that was tied to Hur's head. And when he sees that fragrance is coming from that bandana, he takes off that bandana. When he takes off that bandana, there's blood that is sprouting, fresh blood. What does he do? He puts his own bandana, he ties it around Hur, and he says, "You know what? The blood will stop." When the blood doesn't stop, he tries to get out. When he tries to get out, that's when Hur, he says to him, "Oh Shabbat, I don't want you to make my mausoleum, but that bandana was given to me by Abu Abdullah al-Hussein al-Islam. That is a bandana of Lady Zahra. Give me back that bandana and take your own."
Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Wallanatullahi ala qawm al-kafirin. Matam Hussein.
जिंदा रहे, जिंदा रहे, जिंदा रहे ए आज़ादारे हुसैनी, ये चलन जिंदा रहे, हाज़ा खाने सजाने की लगन जिंदा रहे ए आज़ादारे हुसैनी। जब आज़ा खाना सजे तो दिल बने फर्शे अज़ा, जब अज़ा खाना सजे तो दिल बने फर्शे अज़ा दरकनों में मातमे शाह है ज़मन जिंदा रहे। नोहा मातम के साए में सफ़र करते रहे। नोहा हर बयाज़े गम खुले हर अंजुमन जिंदा रहे। ए अज़ादारे हुसैनी ये चलन जिंदा रहे। रोज़ आशूरा जुलूसे गम को क्या राहत से काम। रोज़ आशूरा जुलूसे याद में प्यासे असीरों की तकन जिंदा रहे। ए अज़ादारे हुसैनी ये चलन जिंदा रहे। हा अज़ा खाने सजाने की लगन जिंदा रहे। या हुसैन पर मोहम्मद